All right. Looks like just about everybody is back. All right, cool. So another important step that I want to make sure to do on GitHub is I know that I'm going to be working with Scott, so I want to make sure to add him as a collaborator on the project. So let me move all my Zoom stuff out of the way. I think this is going to be in settings. Yep, so we're going to go to settings and manage access. And we want to invite a collaborator. Some of y'all have done this already for your paired project, right? And I've looked up his username because we are not friends yet. Should be.
We're friends.
Not on GitHub.
Not on GitHub, yeah. The like social aspect of GitHub, like following people, and I don't know. Some people use it, some people don't. Don't stress out about it too much.
Yeah, back when I was in the coding bootcamp I went to about 3 years ago, we all added each other, and that's pretty much all the people I have on my GitHub.
Yep.
So it's fun to see what they're up to. All right, cool. So this has been successful. Scott has been added as a collaborator. Cool. All right. Scott, did you want to take over at this point and start writing some code?
Sure. Yeah, we can do that. I'll sign into my email and then I'll start screen sharing then.
Sounds good. Yeah, there's technically a social aspect to GitHub, Estelle. When you're on your home screen, any of the people that you follow, you can see what they're doing. Or like you get notifications of people who are interacting with your projects, which can be interesting. So you can see that Bob forked this project that I made. This is Turing related. I can see some other people I follow whenever they create a repo or fork. This is not like super useful, but can be interesting. And then when you go to your own profile, they changed this. Where is it now? Yeah, so you can have followers and people that you're following. I think the most useful thing I find is more so the starring of projects. When you see cool stuff, you can star it, and it's kind of like a wish list of code stuff. So something you can use, definitely don't feel obligated to.
I'm not sure if we're going to cover it, but the Git pages kind of stuff, breaking some of that stuff down.
I don't really
in the
think we're
same
going to get
menu.
into that too much.
Okay.
But if you do have specific questions later on, definitely feel free to ask us.
Okay, I believe I've accepted the invitation. Let's make sure. Yep, I now have push access, so I'll take over the screen share if you're ready, Hannah.
Okay, let me stop sharing.
Okay. You all can see GitHub, correct?
A little small.
Cool. A little small? Cool, good to know. Okay, bump the size up here. So after I click that, accept invitation, it takes me to a page on GitHub where I have to accept it like one more time. So it's in your email, and then it takes you to GitHub, and then you get that confirmation when you see this. You now have push access to the project that you're currently being invited to. So at this point, I don't have anything locally, but I want to collaborate on this project and pick up kind of where Hannah left off. So rather than going through the process of like in my terminal, touch readme.md, I'd probably just want to like clone this down. So again, like Hannah mentioned, this interface has recently changed, and so things are slightly different, but they're in generally the same place. So in this code button here, I can clone it with SSH. I'm not sure if there's anybody using HTTPS. I believe in Mod 0 they like set you up to use SSH. which basically means you don't have to enter your password in every single time. So for a long time when I would clone projects down, I didn't trust this button because it gave me no like visual feedback that anything was copied, but that's what that does there. You can, of course, just click into the text and Command C to copy, but this button does it too, even if it doesn't necessarily like give you any visual indicator. So I've copied the clone link, and now I'm going to go into my terminal. I'm using a different terminal application. I saw Nicole asking about like aliases and terminal customization. I'm a big proponent of that, but it's definitely not something that needs to happen anytime soon. I don't think I customized my terminal until like intermission between mod 1 and mod 2 when I had a little bit of spare time. It's nice to have, but because these customized commands or these shortcuts you create for yourself are shortcuts, they can sometimes remove the like original way of doing things. So if you hop onto a partner's computer and they don't have those same shortcuts, you might end up feeling a little lost. So I do encourage you to stick with the basics for at least this inning. And then if you find yourself wishing you had a little more quality of life upgrades in your terminal over intermission, work on something like that. So you can see my terminal, I'll bump that up too. That's probably a little small, and the formatting always gets a little weird. So I'm going to clear my terminal with Command K and just see where am I. So I'm in my teaching folder in the 2006 folder. That's where I want to create this. So I'm going to git clone and paste that link in there. Now, if I wanted to keep this project name the same as what Hannah has called it, the example project, I can just hit enter here. But if I want to type in a different name for whatever reason, I could add that as an argument to the end of this command. So I could say, it's slightly different, but example project with an underscore rather than a hyphen.
Can we make the text bigger? Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for doing that. In the terminal, you mean?
Yeah, that's great.
Cool. Oh no, I'm in a scary place. Let's see. Oh boy, what did I do there? Okay, so I've got a pretty strange name going on here. I'm gonna redo that. So I'm actually just gonna nuke this thing. If I had that alias set up, I could just say nuke, like Bridget mentioned earlier, but I'm gonna just start this one over. So I actually have autocomplete on in my terminal, so I can just hit tab to fill out the rest of that file name, just to make it a little clearer. So let's start that over. Git clone, and I actually don't want to change the name, so I'm just gonna hit enter here. See that was created, and I'm gonna cd into that. Sorry, I'm experiencing a little bit of lag with my typing here. Cool. And now I've got my README. So just like I said, I switched to a more customizable terminal over intermission. I also switched my text editor at that point, so I use VS Code. I really, as much as like cool and pro as VS Code is, it's the same principle I mentioned earlier. It can give you all these really nice quality of life shortcuts, but if you get used to those too early, you miss out on like the real understanding of what's going on. So I still think it's good to be aware of like the features that other text editors have, but don't feel like you need to rush off and go get VS Code. So I'm going to open that up. You guys, or you all would do Atom dot, but I do code dot, and that should open it up. Oh. Yeah, my computer is running slow today, so thanks for bearing with me. You'll probably notice this too. If your computer starts to just like show its age a little bit or start running kind of hot, it's just make sure you turn off your computer like once a week, like full shutdown, close every program, or things can get a little bit intense. I'd noticed it actually opened up the outside folder, so let me do that one more time. There we go. Okay. And let's make this fit the screen. So I only have one file in here, the README. I do as well also have a markdown preview, but I'm not going to mess with it too much. I don't really need to worry about it at this point. I'm just going to add a quote here. So one of my favorite authors is Kurt Vonnegut Jr. Wrote some great sci-fi like Slaughterhouse-Five or Player Piano. And he's got a quote that's like been very important to me since I was in college, I think, which is not that. I had it copied, but since I've copied some other stuff, I've lost it. So let me copy that, and I'm just going to dump that in here, and I'm just going to say this is a list of quotes. And the quote is, "And I urge you to please notice when you are happy and to exclaim or murmur or think at some point, if this isn't nice, I don't know what is." I deal with a lot of anxiety and like kind of critical self-talk, especially when I do something as intense as Turing. You've heard me mention the panic attack I had on like day 3 in mod 1. So like, I noticed that my mindset can really make note of the negative things I'm experiencing, and the positive things I'm experiencing can kind of slip by unnoticed. And so this quote to me is like, make space out loud to verbalize when you're experiencing some happiness so that you don't have that chance to like skate right by it. So I've done a little bit of work here. If this was code, adding one line of text to your HTML is probably not really a full commit. But for this example, I think it's fine. So let's look at my terminal again. And let's just do a git status. Some people were mentioning that they do this every other command. That's perfectly fine. Eventually, you'll get in the flow where you don't really need to do this as often. But I also want to point out that like reading your terminal is so helpful and so easy to skip over because it'll tell you exactly what's going on. So it says, I've got some changes, but they are not ready to be committed. They're not staged. So I can use git add to stage that. I'm working on master right now. Generally, that's not a good idea. Your master is kind of like your holy grail, your working code. So adding new code directly to that can be dangerous. You can really mess some things up. I've already added these changes. So there's a little command you can use here to kind of like pull those changes out, move to a new branch, and then put them back in. So I'm going to run that here just so I can avoid pushing directly to master. So I'm going to do a git stash, and it does what it sounds like. It stashes these changes away, but you can pull them out later with a different command. So you can see my text editor just updated. Those changes disappeared. And if I do a git status here, it says nothing to commit. There are no changes. So I want to switch over to a new branch. Does anybody know the command to create a new branch?
Checkout, right?
Yep. Git checkout. And generally, if you want to then also like name it, I think you do -b. I'm a little fuzzy on like what that -b is, what that argument is saying, but git checkout -b will let you say, okay, I want to work on some new stuff separate from master so I can't damage master. And the general rule is that your branch name should reflect the feature that you're adding. So on your current project, right, you're working on Hang in There. If you have now added the feature to see a random poster every time the page loads, then you would say the feature branch would be like display random poster. In this case, I'm working on quotes, so I would say quotes. And sometimes you'll see people put their initials in here as well. This will be dependent on who you work for, what the team prefers, but generally a good idea so that it's just like putting your ownership on, this is the branch I worked on. So if people have questions about that branch, they know who to go to. So I'll just name this branch quotes SE. I'm going to clear my terminal just to kind of give myself some more space and do another git status. Now, because of my customized terminal, I can see which branch I'm on right here. But in my text editor, down in the very bottom corner, again, VS Code might be a little different than Atom, but I'm almost certain Atom displays your branch here as well for you. So it's just a good place, a good habit to get into to like, as you're working, have your eye flick down to that corner to verify that you're not working directly on master. So I have stashed those changes I made earlier. Now I want to put them back. The command for that is git stash pop. I'm going to pop those changes right back into it. And you can see they come right back. This saved me so many times. I definitely have a bad habit of like just wanting to get to coding and without really checking my branch first. So this will save you from that issue.
This is my
And if you-
favorite command.
Yeah.
I use it so
Awesome.
much.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So
Hey,
I popped
Scott?
it back in. Yeah. What's up?
Could you go over what exactly that does again? The git stash pop? It felt
Absolutely.
things like disappeared and then came back.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm wishing I hadn't cleared my terminal because I could roll it back and show you. Essentially, I was working on master, which is a no-no. You want to protect that and have some sort of approval process before you put code onto master. And generally, you'll do that on GitHub itself. But I made the changes and I noticed that I was on master and I wanted to take those changes and put them on a feature branch. So that's when I ran git stash, which stashes any current uncommitted changes. So you need to do it before you commit or things will get locked in. So after I've stashed those changes, I created a new branch and I moved to that branch. And to put those changes back, so when I stash them, they kind of get like put in a pocket of Git. And Git then goes to that pocket and pulls them out and puts them back in to your text editor, into your file when you run git stash pop.
And it's gonna put those on the new branch that you created, right?
Exactly. Yeah,
Cool.
exactly. So when I ran git stash pop, I had no changes to commit initially. You can tell because my command line is green, but then I popped those changes in and it's like, oh, cool, there are changes here on this branch. So let's, we probably need to add those and commit them.
And does it remove directly from the main branch that we were on originally, or?
When I ran git stash,
Yeah.
yeah, it'll remove from whatever your current branch is. So it doesn't have to be like master to do this. It's just any time you make changes and you want to switch to a different branch, you're going to stash them away. And then when you get to the new branch, you're going to pop them back in.
Can
Awesome.
I try to explain what I understand to see if I understand it and have you tell me if I'm
I
right?
would love that. Yes.
What I'm hearing is when you run git stash, it like reverts whatever working branch you have back to the last commit. It takes notice of those changes and then it stores those changes sort of like in a copy paste thing for you to then re-access and paste into something else with git stash pop.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. I appreciate the clarification you added too, is that it reverts back to its previous commit. So all of the work that you have added since the last time you committed will get zipped up in that stash. And there are, that stash will have a number associated with it too. So if you end up stashing a few changes, you can pull out just this one or just that one based on the number. I've never really had to do that. So I think I'll leave that to like a little bit of independent research if that interests you. But that I'd say you sum that up pretty well, Matthew.
I would add one thing. I really love that description, but I would say instead of copy and paste, I would say cut and paste.
Ooh.
Because
Yeah.
we're not making a copy, we're actually like cutting that code out and saving it and then either applying it or not.
That is
awesome.
Thank you, Hannah.
Another cool stash command, maybe you have code that you don't want, that you want to just blow away. There's also get stash drop, and it will just drop them away. All the code will be gone. So you probably won't want this, but sometimes you will.
Yeah. Great. What other questions?
Hey, Scott, can you go over again the master versus branch situation, please?
Yeah. Yeah. So the general rule of thumb is that your master branch is like your production level code. It's the code that is like actually running the application that you're building when the users are interacting with it. So you really only want finalized bug-free code to go to master. And instead of just like writing your code on master and like crossing your fingers that there are no bugs, we instead like to we make a copy of master by making a branch, and we do our work over on that branch so that we can protect master. Now we're still eventually going to merge it in, but the idea is that by working on this copy, master is still unaffected. Then when I push these changes up from my branch, so my quotes -se branch, that will go up to GitHub. It will still remain separate until we go through a pull request process where the team will review that code, verify that it's working, maybe even ask for some changes still. And then after it's been reviewed and approved, then it gets put on a master, master gets updated, everybody would pull down to have that newest version of master code.
Thank you.
Sure. All right. Let's see. So I made some changes. I ran a git status. I'm going to do it again because it's it's always safe to run git status, and it tells me exactly what I need to know. I have changes, but they are not yet staged for commit. So what step do I need to do to stage these changes? Anybody? Somebody's got it. I've made some changes. Yep. Okay, git add. Let's do that. And so if I had multiple files I wanted to change, and I wanted to do that bad practice of adding them all together, I could do git add dot, but I don't have multiple files to add. I just have the one that's mentioned up here where it says that this is the file that's been modified. So instead of git add dot, I'll do git add readme.md. I'll do another git status. And now I see that it's modified, but it's in green, meaning it is ready to be committed. It has been staged for commit. So now I'm at the process, or I'm at the point in this process where I can commit these changes, lock them in. And so I'll do git commit -m and see that autocomplete there that just says bullshit. I was running through an example process of this with my partner who's about to enter the backend program, and bullshit. Let's see. So the git commit message should be specific to the changes you made, but it does not need to be a paragraph. It really should. It should be a single sentence. And if you find yourself doing "and" in your git commit message, like change this and this, that should be a red flag to you that you're probably committing too much together, and you should break those out into their individual commits. So in this case, all I did was add quote header, and I know I just said don't use add or and, but I added the quote header and first quote. In that case, I think that's okay. But if you're mentioning changes that happen in multiple files, you probably need to break that up a little bit more. So you'll notice I capitalized the first letter. And this is what's known as like the imperative tense, meaning like someone is telling you to do this almost. So rather than say like, oh, in the past I added these, I'm saying this commit adds the quote header and the first quote. Lock that in. And let's do another git status. On branch quotes SE, nothing to commit, working tree clean. So now I'm ready to push these changes up. So let's do a git push origin. And I think I'll do it to, not edits, that's a different branch here. Let me just try git push. Fatal. The current branch has no upstream branch. So earlier when we ran that git remote add origin -u, I was setting the upstream for master, but I haven't yet done this for this branch. It's been a minute since I've done this. Hannah, what do I need to do here? I'm a little bit lost myself.
I think you just run that command there to set the upstream.
Easy enough.
Yeah.
Just like I said earlier, that information is generally in the terminal, and it's really easy to glaze over it, like I just did. So let's do set upstream origin, but I want to do quotes -se. So this will say that this branch needs to go to the remote, but it's not going to master because that would be bad practice. We'd be pushing straight to master. Instead, it's going to push to the remote branch that mirrors the branch I'm currently on. Oh, I spelled it wrong. So you can always do up on your keyboard to get the last few commands you've run. You can see I can run all the way back through. So save yourself some time if you do end up having a typo, because this is really quotes -se. Cool. So we pushed it up.
I have a question.
Yeah, please.
So every time, how often should you be committing versus pushing? Like, it seems like it's clear to me now that committing is like one thing that you did, but you don't probably want to push every time you commit, right?
Correct. Yeah. Most of these questions about like how often or how granular, there's no hard right answer. You'll feel it out over time, but generally it's like you'll commit many times before you push up. So let's say you're working on a feature, a function, displaying random posters on page load. You'd probably commit multiple times as you completed individual pieces of that feature. And then once the feature itself is like fully complete, completely working, that is when you'd probably push that up and you'd go through the process of merging it. And then once that feature is done, you'd probably need to start work on a new feature branch. I hope that answered that question.
Yeah, so just to kind of reiterate, so you want to push when you think you're ready to code review and merge your branch to your master.
Exactly. That's a great way to put that.
Okay.
So I have a question. Let's say you had a typo when you were doing your commit or doing your branch, and the convention of your company, or maybe you just say like, hey, that was a bad commit message. Is there a way to like edit commit messages or branch names?
Well, you could always like stash your changes and move to create a new branch and put those changes on there if you want to like create a new branch. And in terms of editing your commit messages, I know there's a way to do it. I've never done it myself. Hannah, have you ever had experience with that?
Yeah, I've never done it either, and I'm sure that there is a way. So pretty much the same answer. I think in this case, I would just do better next time, honestly. If you're working at a place that has conventions, make sure that you follow them, but you're going to be making so many commit messages over your career. I don't know. I don't think it would be worth the time to go back and fix them. But of course, you're going to have situations where that might make sense, but there should be a way to do that.
I did discover way back when there's a way to change the last one, the very last commit message you made. And it's on GitHub. I forget what it is. So you can search it and it comes up pretty easily.
Yeah, that documentation is out there. It's just one of those things you don't need to memorize. Look it up when the time comes.
You can do lots of complicated stuff with Git that just maybe only comes up once a year. So definitely lots of stuff you could learn, but that can derail quickly. I want to go back to the first question just real quickly, if you don't mind, about when to push code. So yes, once you're in a place to get your code merged and looked at, but you may be working at a place where you are working on the same feature for days at a time, right? So you may end up wanting to push at the end of the day to make sure that your code is saved up there in GitHub. Think about kind of worst case scenario. If your computer blows up or there's a fire, like something catastrophic happens. If your code isn't pushed up to GitHub and your computer dies, it's not saved. This isn't something to worry about, but you may encounter this in the workplace where you're going to be making a push at the end of the day and not necessarily in a place to merge it yet. This is something pull requests help us with. So if we're pushing up to a non-master branch, master will be still protected, but your code will be up there for anybody to pull down.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. That's a really important
Mhm.
piece. I've seen some memes about, like, in case of fire, you know, git push and then find the staircase kind of thing. And just like Hannah said, because I'm on a branch, I can push up and it will just live up there, kind of like floating around, waiting for it to be merged in. And you can continue to push up to it once it's already up there. And then when you're ready, then merge it into master. So that's like cloud saving, if you will. Like if you've used Dropbox or any of those cloud saving services, GitHub is essentially that same thing, but for code. And so it's always a good idea to put that extra line of defense. So it's not just all this precious hours of blood, sweat, and tears on your local machine, but that you've also got that cloud backup on GitHub.
Save your work.
Save your work. Yep. Cool. So I've pushed it, and let's take a look at the GitHub
Sorry,
page.
Scott, one thing really quick.
Sure.
You're pushing it to the new branch you created, right? Not the master branch.
Yeah, exactly. So when I pushed, I had to also set the upstream, and I told it, go to this branch, quotes, well, really, here it is, quotes SE. If I was pushing a master, I would have written master there.
Okay.
Looks like we have a couple other questions.
Okay.
Cool.
Nicole?
Orlando.
Oh, and Orlando.
Sure.
Yeah, I have a question regarding when you push to the newly created branch, would it be a good practice to pull to the origin master before you push that change? Because when you push your branch, like we're ready, like when I push it, I know that I'm going to be creating a pull request, right? And then I'm going to be merging with my master remotely. So before I push, is it a good practice to pull master one more time just to make sure it is like up to date, or it doesn't necessarily like matters a lot since we're going to be pushing these changes and then merging that branch?
Yeah, so in this case, Scott literally just pulled down from master, right? Like he just got all of those changes. So he didn't really need to pull from master quite yet since the project's brand new. But yes, that is a very important part of workflow that we will go over. So it is best practice to always pull from master and get that code into your branch first before making a pull request. But we'll show you what that looks like.
The general flow will be, as you start your work for the day, you'll pull down to see if anybody's made any changes. You'll create a branch off of that, the most up-to-date master, and then you'll do your work and push up. But very good clarifying question. Nicole, did you have one as well?
Yeah. So are we basically like always working in a branch? We're not actually working in the master itself at any time?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. And then my other question was, why is it like favorable to not push when you commit? Like each time? Like why is that?
Generally, your
That's a
commits
theory.
are going to be pieces of an overall unit of work, but they're going to be like steps along the way to that final feature being fully finished. So if you were having to push every time, I guess it just adds an extra piece that is unnecessary, because those are going to be pieces of the puzzle, but until the whole puzzle is complete, we can't merge it in anyway. So you might as well just kind of commit along the way. When it's complete, then we can push up so we can merge it in. Anything you'd add to that, Hannah?
I would say that you're welcome to push after you commit. I often do that because I like making sure all of my code is up there and safe. But it is an additional unnecessary step. So I feel like if you want to, if it's helpful for you, do it. But if not, don't worry about it. And that's just my personal opinion.
So like kind of like a follow-up question, would we be like for our project we're working on right now, like for example, if we're working on like getting the buttons to switch views, would it make sense to just do commits for each button working and then push when all of the buttons are ready? Is that like an example?
I'm sorry, I had a hard time hearing that just because somebody's unmuted, I think, but or I don't know if that was coming from you, but could you repeat that one more time? You said you were kind of working on different features for each button in your project.
Yeah, so like if I have, like I'm thinking of like that main page that we have for our Hang in There project. And if we get like each of the buttons to go where it needs to go when we press it, like each of those would be an example of committing like, okay, this functionality is added to this button, but then we push when the whole entire thing works. Is that like an example?
I think that sounds right. The feature in that case could be like navigation. And then the commits along the way would be getting each of those buttons to perform the correct functionality to do that.
Cool,
Yeah, I'd
thanks.
agree too.
And I have one more quick question. Would you recommend like everyone having their own separate branch? And then like, or no?
I'm not sure I totally understand the question. Yeah, can you elaborate?
Sorry. I was just thinking like whenever you've got your branch with the name SE on it, would every developer have their own separate branch that they're working on and then like push those to a like something else? Or are they working on the same branch?
Good question. Yeah, there will be times in which you're like sharing a branch with other developers if you're both working on the same feature or different aspects of something like that. And in that case, you'd just be on the same branch, I assume. But in your projects, it'll probably be like you'll work on one, driving and navigating, and then you'll switch off and then the other person will work on their version because you'll be working on the next feature. If you were sharing work on the same feature, you would probably share the same branch.
Cool. Thank you.
To add to that, I would say it's definitely much more challenging working on the same branch, especially if you were not pairing. If you are off on your own separately working on the same branch, it's really likely that you will encounter merge conflicts, right? And I know we haven't gone over those yet, we will. But having the same code on the same branch in the same file can get really messy, right? You may be writing some code for one specific function. Maybe your partner decides to write the same function with the same name with different code. That's gonna clash. Not to say that working on the same branch is bad. There's just extra considerations around communication and making sure you're not stepping on toes. I will say that working on the same branch can be helpful. So for me in my first developer job, when I was a junior, I would be working on a feature on a specific branch. And if I needed help, I would push that up. And the senior developer I was working with would pull down my branch and check it out and look at the changes. So you may be working on separate or same branch. It just depends. And there's different things to consider with each.
Can I expand on that a little bit?
Yeah.
So my partner and I are trying to keep up with each other by writing similar code in our Atom as we go along. Is that going to create a conflict when we're trying to push that back up to GitHub?
So you're both kind of typing on your local machines kind of like at the same time as one another.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could.
After driver navigator roles.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible that could introduce some conflicts. I guess it depends on how like careful you're being about it. I would generally maybe avoid doing that because that seems like a duplication of work, and rather I'd focus on the like one person driving, one person navigating. Yeah, I don't know what else to add.
Awesome. No, that actually helps a lot. Thank you.
Cameron, like I feel like it's might be a good idea to just like create a separate branch that you're just working on personally and just never like push it up. And then whenever you're done with an iteration, just pull down the the changes onto your local, and then start a new branch. But I do feel like it's a good idea if you're struggling on a iteration, you're not sure all the concepts, go back and try to redo that section on your own.
Yeah. Good on you. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Cool. We are getting due for a POM pretty soon. I just wanted to run through, now that I've pushed up, it appears on GitHub for both Hannah and I, but it's just kind of floating there, right? It's up on its own branch, but it has not yet been merged. And so that's the pull request that we'll do. Some people get confused by that naming convention. I know I did. It's perfectly fine to think of it like a merge request. You're requesting to merge it into the main master branch. But until that happens, it's just kind of like safe floating up there, not affecting anything. So on your code page after you've pushed, generally you'll see it pop up right here in this nice yellow bar, kind of calling your attention. But sometimes I've encountered it where it doesn't appear here and you actually have to go look for it. And it would be under pull requests, and you maybe see a bar down here. There it is, right there. So it says I have recent pushes about 15 minutes ago. So if I want to compare that code in my feature branch with what's already in the repository's master branch and request to merge it in, I'd click this button here. And this will take you to the pull request page. This is going to generally populate with the name of your most recent commit. But it's okay to rename this. And in fact, maybe it's a good idea to summarize the sum of the work rather than the sum of your last commit here. So this would maybe just say quotes. And this is where you would just describe what you did. As you move through the curriculum, you'll see some better and better examples of pull requests. It's a good idea to use a template to make sure you're giving someone enough information, because they will have not necessarily been with you as you made all of these changes across multiple files. And so it can get difficult to know where to start or what to pay attention to. So using a pull request template is great. I have one copied already that I found from I think it's a Mod 2 lesson. And generally, you can use some markdown formatting in here. That's what these octothorpes are. But generally, you just kind of want to describe the changes that have been made. So this PR adds a heading of quotes and one quote from Kurt Vonnegut Jr. And then a lot of these might not apply at first as you work on relatively simple projects. Where should you start? How should we test it? What context do you want to provide? Tickets are something you would also hear called as issues. When there's a known bug, you might file an issue. And then if this pull request were to fix that bug, you could mention it here. Screenshots if it's a visual change like HTML, CSS, and any questions that might still be lingering. One important thing too is if you encountered a problem that was difficult to solve and you think people on your team might benefit from knowing how you solved it, you could drop in links to any research you did that helped you come to your solution. You just basically want to provide as much information as you can so that someone coming in to review these changes has access to all of the context and they don't have to spend any time coming to you to figure out what this is really doing, because you've already done the work to give them that information here. Since I don't really have too much to say on all this, I'm going to delete anything that's irrelevant to this particular pull request. And in this case, that's most of it. So we'll just leave it like this. You can see the commits I've run. It's important to know that you can also see any how many files have changed. And yours might look a little different if you're doing this. A lot of times they'll kind of show you these things top to bottom, but I prefer to see them side by side. So if you had deletions and additions, you'd see them both listed here. So this is like what it was like previously in the remotes master branch. And these are my changes here on the right. And last but not least, there's a couple things over here. Maybe this is attached to a project board to keep track of the project planning. Maybe there are some labels like which languages are being used, or is it an HTML thing, a JS thing? And I can request a review. And you'll see anybody who's invited to collaborate on this repo here. So I can tag Hannah in this, and she'll get a little notification that she should review this as well. I'll go ahead and create that pull request. You've got some other options here, but generally you're just going to create the pull request. Nothing's going to happen. It's just going to say, okay, we've officially opened up this request to merge into master, and we'll leave it like that until it gets approved and merged in.
Hey, Scott.
Yeah.
So if you have like if you're able to pull and push, like, because with our project, we are like, our partners are contributors, is it better to, even though we can do it and like we don't need to do a pull request to do a pull request?
Yeah, I think it's good practice. You'll be doing it a lot on the job, and honestly, it's one of those things that potential employers might look at to see like how thoroughly are you reviewing the code on your projects, and what sort of documentation can you add. So it's a really good way to like get in the habit and to demonstrate some professionalism before you even get on the job.
Can you go ahead and just walk through the steps just one more time for the review request?
Sure. Yeah. So that might be kind of difficult to show at this point. Essentially, once you've pushed up your changes, you'll have a little button to create a new pull request. And it's going to need some changes here, so I don't think I can quite show you unless I make some. So let me do that real quick. So I'm just going to add a space and then hello. And I'm going to add these changes. And I'm going to commit them and say add hello. And I'm going to push. Now, so this is kind of interesting. I'm still working on that quotes branch that's already has a PR open for it. And so these changes that I'm pushing now are still going to go to this open PR. So let's do that. Right now, I only see one commit, add the quote header and first quote. After I push these up, let's see. This is where I'll do my up on the keyboard to go back to some of my previous commands. I should not need to now set the upstream. It should already be there. So actually, let me just do a git push since I've already set my upstream. Very cool. I've pushed up changes. You'll see it automatically start to update. My new commit is here. And then if this was a different branch, you just open up the PR for this one. I think we'll have another chance to show this a little bit better on like a new branch once we get over to Hannah's side of things again. And we're definitely overdue for a POM. So let's take a POM. Let's do about a 7-minute POM and come back at 10:32. We'll pick up where we left off.
Hey Scott, I have a quick question before we start again. So my partner and I in our project didn't follow this exact protocol. Is there do you think it's worth it to go back in time and try to fix our commits and our pull requests?
Nah, no. It's a learning process. I know I definitely didn't do it all right on every single project. It's similar to what Hannah mentioned earlier, where you're going to make mistakes sometimes, and it can really turn into a nightmare quick if you're trying to like edit old commits or
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
undo commits. So I would just say make note of what you'd like to do differently going forward,
Okay.
and just make
And
that a
like kind of
focus.
voice that to our project manager and then maybe just try to demonstrate it in future commits and pull requests or
Exactly. Yeah.
okay.
And we know that this is all still pretty new. So it's not like, oh no, you didn't use a feature branch, you're in huge trouble. It's like, just make note of it and
Okay.
work to demonstrate that you have understood the concept better
Okay.
going forward.
Excellent,
understood.
because we botched that hard.
Yeah. It'll
Yeah,
happen.
big time.
And
Okay, well,
we're going to
that's
give you some time to run through that process again today. And it's the perfect place to take some risks, try some things you're not sure about, and a safe place to make those mistakes and learn from them.
okay, cool. Thank you.
So I just have some clarification because Taylor and I, every time we pull, our code on our atom doubles, or like it adds, like it basically creates a merge conflict, and we have like double code and everything every time. Is that because we are doing the same thing on both of our atoms?
So you both were independently coding and then pushing up and then merging in? Yeah, probably.
Okay.
Yeah, that might be a bit of a rabbit hole for right now, but I would definitely reach out to your project manager about that.
Cool.
My guess is it's.
And I actually helped us a little bit with it yesterday, but it's still kind of like, I think we're just trying to pull and push like at the same time or like right after another one we're not supposed to. Because we're kind of just trying to test it to see if it works, but every time we test it, it just combines our code. And then we have to like filter through and go, okay, we have, let's get rid of these, let's get rid of that. And then, okay, so that makes sense then.
Yep.
Cool, thank you.
Of course.
Scott, I also have kind of a weird question. It was resolved, but yesterday when I was pulling down the main branch for project work, our very last commit wasn't showing up. Like it wasn't reflected in the code that I pulled down, but it was reflected in the code on GitHub, and it just wasn't. We eventually got it. I just kept deleting it and re-pulling it down, and eventually something stuck. But yeah, it was just odd. Is that something you've encountered before?
No, it's not. Hannah, have you encountered anything like that?
No, but things happen. I feel like I'd have to see a little bit more of the code to be able to figure that out.
Yeah, we were literally missing, I think, one event listener, and that's it. But it was just concerning. But okay, thanks.
Sure. Yeah, wish we could be more help on that one, but that's kind of the something you'll walk away from this lesson is a lot of things can go wrong in a lot of different ways, and the whole point of Git is to keep track of all these various versions of your code. And so while it can feel really scary, using Git is like a safety net. So there's always going to be something you can move back to, especially if you're committing frequently. Then you'll have that like safety net of being able to roll back to those last commits.
Yes, this has happened to me. I was on a project at my first job, and we knew something was wrong with the code, but we didn't know what day or who did it or what commit did it. We were able to use Git to track it down and find exactly the spot where the code broke. And we were able to pull that out and have a working code base again. It was very stressful in the moment, but without Git, this wouldn't have been possible. Our code would have just been ruined.
Cool. So we've got an open PR. I locally did some work. I committed that work. I pushed it up. And now I believe Hannah has a PR waiting for her.
Cool.
So do you want to screen share, Hannah, and take up from there?
Yeah, let's do it. Do you want me to review your pull request here, Scott?
Yeah.
All right. Share this desktop. All right, cool. So we are back on my GitHub, and we can see a couple things. First of all, Scott and I are friends now, so that's great. So I can see his activity that he actually pushed to my project. But then up here, I have this thing that I can just click on, showing that my review was requested 13 minutes ago. So I will click into this. Cool. So Scott has requested my review on this PR, and I get this nifty kind of window here showing me a lot of different information about what he actually changed. So this is going to be his pull request template, right? So this is telling me exactly what that pull request does, all that helpful information that he provided for me. So if I want, I can do some emojis to say that I really like this PR. I don't know, some people use them, some people don't. It's going to depend on where you work. I can also click in to actually see his commits. So I can click into this first one, right? And this is really, really useful view here, being able to see what has changed. So this commit in particular, we've got, instead of just this quote, now we have the quote with hello. So I can see specifically what that commit changed. Okay, that was the most recent one. And then this was the first commit that he did. We went from having nothing to having all of this information here with the header and the quote. All right, so I can continue looking. I can see sort of this breakdown here of the order. So when my review was requested, when those commits happened.
Yeah, right. I love that view of those commits. It's, if you're writing small commits, it's going to really tell the story of everything you did along the way, which is great for your partners learning. If they weren't there for that code, you can kind of tell the story of the code with those small commits.
Yep. So another thing, if I'm going into these files change, so this is actually something different. I was looking at the commits individually. Now I just want to see the overall changes. So this is going to be this files change tab right here. And if he had pushed up some other changes, like maybe there was an HTML or a CSS file as well, I would see all of those listed here by file. So if this were longer, I could expand it and kind of see all of the code here. And another cool thing is I can actually click line by line and provide some feedback to Scott. In this case, there's no code, it's just some words. But if I wanted to actually start reviewing and maybe request changes, maybe say, you know, this is really cool. What is this? What kind of code are you doing? You know, really any type of conversation that I want to have here. So since this is just an example, I can just provide this, but you know, generally we would want to provide something helpful for some code that was written.
Yeah, you might ask a question about the code if you don't understand it, or maybe comment on like the formatting or whatever is helpful for you or your partner at that time.
Yep.
I have sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Another quick question. I think it relates back to what we were talking about with comments yesterday. If you wanted to like comment with your code reviewer, would you use the PR or like code comments?
Probably the PR, I would say. Yeah, this is the space where you are going to have conversations about your code. At this point, you're probably doing a lot of work together, which is great, like you're doing Driver Navigator. But thinking to when you're on the job, maybe people are working on separate things. At the last place where I worked, anybody could review anybody's code, even if you had never worked on that project before. So this is a great space to provide context, to learn, to communicate, to find out about the code. And you can go back and reference it, right? Sometimes if we're just having a Slack message about code, that will get lost. But putting this directly on the code, being very specific about where the issue or whatever is, means we can go back and reference it. So I was talking about there was a big problem with the code. We could use Git to track it down. This is also helpful just to kind of see what the conversation is. Also think about a workplace. Maybe I wrote some code and then I went on vacation for 2 weeks. Nobody can talk to me, but they can come back to GitHub and reference conversations and notes that I have left about the code. So kind of conversations, stories, general helpful information can live here.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions?
Yeah, I got a question. And so if there was actually something wrong with the code that you pointed out, you'd put it in the comment, right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. And then, so if that's the case, then I read that comment, or Scott read that comment, he would just go back into his local file, fix whatever you were pointing out, and then push it again into the same branch.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Nice.
And you create a new
precisely.
pull request for that, or would you somehow put that on the same pull request?
Yeah, so if you push it up, it should go to the same pull request as long as it is on the same branch.
Okay, got it.
Yep. Yeah, I'm glad you asked that, because what I actually did here is instead of just leaving a comment, I actually asked for a review, which isn't necessary, but just so you can see that. So maybe instead of saying, I love this quote, can you change this to be all uppercase letters, please? Right? So maybe this is a change I feel is important that Scott needs to make in order for this code to be pushed into master. So updating that comment, you can see that this is pending. This is really helpful, saying like, this is something that you need to fix, go ahead and change it, push it up, and then maybe I will review it. I can leave more of a general comment here under this finish your review. I can approve it, saying I think this is great, this is good to go. Or like I said, I can request changes. Now you don't have to use this feature quite yet, because I know there's a lot of features that we're going over, but this can be really helpful, right? Maybe you're looking at your partner's code and you see something that's causing a large error. Instead of merging it in and having to deal with it later, you can prevent that from happening, because everybody makes mistakes, right? A big, big benefit to this is having two eyes on the code, right? So if I write some code that's bad and Scott approves it and says it's good to go, we're both to blame here, right? It's kind of like the second line of defense, making sure that we're pushing good, clean code.
Yeah. And that's part of why we write such in-depth pull requests, to really document and tell that whole story. Because if we were just like push it up and just like, you know, no story about what's going on, it's much harder for that other person to come in and actually do a thorough review and to look at the right place and to consider the right context that this code is going to run in. So yeah, second line of defense is very important.
Yep. Okay, so I'm gonna actually go ahead and approve, maybe leave a comment. Looks great. Ignore my uppercase comment from before, just to kind of show you what that looks like. All right, cool. So this would be if I was providing that information, but I left this comment of looks great, so I've approved.
Yeah, and I immediately see that refresh on my page. So on that page for my pull request, those comments immediately show up for me. So if I wanted to make that change, I could do so very quickly and push it right up. And then it's so instantaneous that it really allows for that remote collaboration, which, as we know in this day and age, is even more important than it usually is. Hannah, do you want me to make that change real quick, or should we just move past it?
Yeah, would that be helpful to see?
Yeah, I'll do it here. I don't think I necessarily need to screen share,
okay.
But I'm still on the same branch locally. I'm going to have to capitalize all that. Let's see. going to shorten it up a little bit just for time's sake. Okay. And I made the change in my text editor. I'm adding the file now, and I'm going to push it up. Okay, so I've just pushed up. I have a feeling we'll see that immediately be reflected on the same page that Hannah's on.
Ooh, new changes since I last viewed. Yep, cool. So that is the change. I see this commit. I can click into this if I want to double check. All right, cool, cool. We got what we wanted. So I can resolve this conversation because Scott has fixed the thing I said was an issue. I can add some communication if I want, or I can just go ahead and just resolve it. I also see that there are no conflicts. This is not guaranteed. It can be helpful, but I still, would want to double check at times. Conflicts can still happen, but I think this looks good. So I'm going to just click that big green button. All right, it gives me a second chance to be like, are you sure? Yes, let's confirm. All right, so this changed from green to purple, and we've got this pull request successfully merged and closed. This says you're all set. The quotes -se branch can be safely deleted. There was a question in the chat about should we be deleting our branches after things are closed and merged. I think there's differing opinions about that. I think at this point, it can be good to go look back and see your branches and see that information. Typically when you are finishing an app and it's production ready, we say, some of those branches are gonna get cleaned up because it can get messy. Imagine you have like 50 different branches. So on one hand, it's good to see that history. On another hand, you may not need it. I feel like leaving them is probably good for now. What do you think, Scott?
I agree. I think it makes it easier for us to understand what your workflow is and to help give you tips if you need it. So if we can see how many branches you used, how granular your commits were, it'll help us guide you in the right direction if you're a little off track.
All right, cool. So this is all merged in. All right, and you can see here that this little view, our README is updated with all of that information that Scott pushed up. So I want to work on it now. Should I go ahead and show a merge conflict at this point? Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, it's hard to make one like on purpose. So I guess I would just maybe not pull from master. And just start writing some stuff and see what happens. Okay, so this is not what you should do. I mean, you can do this. You can open up a text editor, but all right. So I'm not a great developer right now. I'm not pulling from master. I'm just doing whatever I want.
And this will happen like naturally. You'll be excited to work on the next iteration and you'll just start coding. And then an hour later, be like, oh shit. I haven't pulled down from master yet.
Yep, so I haven't pulled from master. I haven't really checked to see if anybody else has collaborated. Even though I did actually approve Scott's PR, I was really out of it and totally forgot. So I'm gonna write some quotes and spell it wrong. Who's got a quote for me?
Put you on the spot.
Well, I saw some in the chat earlier.
With great power comes great responsibility.
Okay.
So this gets at the question Nicole was asking, like what creates a conflict? And so the conflict derives from checking what is in your online remote master branch against what you're trying to push into that branch. So if it detects something different, it's going to show you those differences, and that's what's called a conflict.
I'm getting a lot of quotes, and I've got to include all of
Gee.
them.
You're killing me, Smalls. That's a good one. Sandlot, right?
All right, I think I'm going to end with this one. This is a good one. All right, so I've added some code here, some markdown. Go ahead and run a git status. And I guess at this point, should I just push to master? Is that going to be the best way to create a conflict for you?
Yeah, I think that's
believe
fine.
so. This is just so wrong. I don't know how to do it. All right.
Right.
So I'm going to add this file. All right. And I'm going to write a pretty poor commit message. So Scott knows that this is just an example and this is a bad thing. Git push origin master. Oh no, what happened? All right, so some of you might have seen this. We get this immediate rejection. So let's kind of unpack this. First, we get an error, failed to push some refs to our remote. We got like 6 hints here, which is really nice. Updates were rejected because the remote contains work that you do not have locally. This is caused by another repository pushing to the same ref. You may first want to integrate the remote changes with a get pull before pushing again. All right, so this is immediately just not going to work, right? Git does have some protections in there saying that, hey, these things are different. You got to figure this out. So let's do that. Let's run this first thing that Git is instructing us to do. Oh no, a conflict. Okay, so we did pull and we've got some information. We're pulling from master. We've got quotes that this is a new branch. This is also information we're pulling in that this new branch was created. And then we've got this conflict that says merge conflict in readme.markdown. So we will be notified of the file. So if you have more files than a README, it's going to tell you exactly what file the conflict is in. This is really important. It's saying that our automatic merge failed. We need to fix conflicts and then commit the result. All right, so I'm in VS Code. You may be working in Atom, but whatever text editor you're in, you're going to get a view similar to this. All right, so we've got this current change in this lovely green color here. This is the change that I made. So my personal current change of my quotes. And then down here, we've got this blue, our incoming change. So this is going to be incoming from master that we're pulling in to our branch. So we need to do something here because we can't have both things. Now, we could in this example because it's just a README, but imagine if this were code. Imagine we had like a function titled quotes, but in one version, maybe we console logged this stuff. Maybe in this version, we console logged this stuff. We can't have the same function with the same name like that. It's going to be conflicting. It's going to be confusing. It's not the code that we want. We can't really have two versions of sort of the same thing. So you're going to get merge conflicts when, like I said, you have a function with the same name. Essentially, we're putting code in the same spot that does not match up. Do we have questions about that? I don't know if I explained that super clearly.
I have a question. So basically what the text editor, or in this case, GitHub is doing is like looking at the lines of code, and if they don't match, they will say, hey, there is something already there that you're trying to change. So make sure you know exactly what you want, make the changes, and then merge? Or you have to push again? Because you're going to have to make changes, right?
I am going to have to make changes. Yeah, that's correct.
So my question would be, you make the changes and then push to that same master that you were trying to push to GitHub, right?
So I'm going to have to make changes here in order to push to master to have like a clean version of master essentially. Because we are kind of dealing with some of the same items that may be trying to override itself. And essentially GitHub doesn't know which one we want. It's just saying, you're trying to do the same thing in different ways. I'm unsure of which path to take. Do I take the path of master with this quotes in blue, or do I take this new path of Hannah's local master of the quotes in green? This is the conflict, and we say it needs to be resolved.
I see. Okay, that makes it cool.
Other questions so far?
I have one. So what if you have, like, what if the code is not in the same place, but it doesn't work well together? Is that like a different problem?
It doesn't work well together. Meaning that just like the functions you wrote are not playing nice with some functions in another file?
Right.
Yeah, as long as they're in a different place and structurally different, then that's fine. Yeah, that would be a different problem.
Okay.
Maybe like some console errors if that were the case.
Yeah, Git and GitHub are just kind of checking for, it's almost like they're looking at like line numbers and what code exists at those line numbers. It's not going to be smart enough to know that like this code is going to give this code an error. It's just more about like, well, I have, and I urge you to please notice when you're happy as my line 3 or whatever, but you're pushing up something else that doesn't include that. It's different than that. Which should I take?
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Cool.
You guys are going nuts with these quotes. Don't get too distracted with all these fake quotes, everybody. This is important stuff here.
All right, so let's go ahead and resolve this. So I have some decisions that I need to make. Maybe I would message Scott and say, hey, we've emerged conflict. Let's deal with it. Maybe this is something that's entirely my fault. So it would be my responsibility as the developer to make sure I'm pushing up clean code. I don't know if this is rule 1, but never push up a merge conflict. Always deal with a merge conflict before pushing up. Very general rule that will always apply. There is a way to deal with merge conflicts on the GitHub website. Do not do that. It can get messy and unclear. We always want to make sure that we're dealing with these merge conflicts in our text editor on our command line, like we're going to do here. And it is your responsibility as a developer to pull down from master, get those changes, address any conflicts that arise, then re-push up your code. We don't want to be pushing up bugs or things like that and causing problems for other developers, making master not clean, all these sorts of things. So in order to address this, I need to choose which one I want. So, and this is again going to be very similar in Atom. I think it's even a little bit more friendly, like there's actual buttons that they give you. But I can choose to click accept current change, which is going to be the code I wrote, or accept incoming change, which is the code that Scott wrote. I could also accept both changes. If you click this though, you're still going to have a merge conflict. You're going to have to still make some changes. So I can choose a combination of both if there are pieces from both code that I like, that I want to keep. So maybe what I want to do is keep my current change, but I want to copy and paste Scott's quote in there because I want both. So what I could do is copy and paste this quote out and put it in here, right? So I could do this, but I would definitely make sure that you have really communicated with your partner before making these changes, because you don't want to be removing somebody else's code, right? This is not good. You want to be communicating and make sure you both agree on the code that you want to live on master. So in this case, I think it's fine because we're showing you an example. But what I'm going to do is go ahead and accept this current change. So I'm going to click this button here. All right, and you can see that all those fancy colors are gone, and I have all of that code that I selected, along with this line that I copy and pasted from Scott. Questions about this?
Is that going to change the master itself or just change your local, like what you have locally?
So right now it's only affected locally, but I'm going to push it to master. What you will be doing is pushing it up to that branch. But before you push up, nothing's really changed on the remote.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. All right, so I'm going to save that. Okay. Get status. All right, so I have conflicts. Okay. Just add it all because I'm being lazy right now. And then I want to write a commit message that says resolved merge conflict. This is something that I do whenever there's a merge conflict, to be very specific. There is a, just so we remember that there was a conflict that occurred, it is now resolved. This is just kind of like a good convention to be super clear that we're not like adding a new feature right now, new feature or a bug. We have just resolved a merge conflict. So I should be able to push. All right, cool. So it worked. So I have resolved the merge conflict. I've pushed it up to the remote version of master. So when we go back and look, we should see all of those quotes there. So again, going forward, we don't want to be committing to master like this. We just wanted you to see what it looked like when there was a merge conflict and when we tried to do that. When we got this issue here, you're gonna see this. I can pretty much guarantee it. So this is just a helpful reminder to make sure you're pulling from master. And when we pop back over here to our example project, there you go. You can see those changes.
It's important to note, I think, that we did not have to do a pull request for these changes because Hannah pushed directly to master. So it's just going to be the main code now. If we were on a branch, we would have to request to make that a part of our main code on master. But since we were doing the bad practice and just pushing it straight to the main code base, there it is. It's GitHub's like, okay, all right, hope you know what you're doing.
Yep. Okay. What else should we show you?
I have a question real quick. I'm sorry.
Sure.
So in the Git flow page, there is a reference to master merge. Let me go back to that. But, or Git merge master. And just kind of some clarification of that, because that's different than doing a pull request and merging with master from GitHub, right?
Okay, yeah, let's go through that. Thank you for asking that. All right. I have too many windows open. All right, so let me see. Let me look at this list really quick. Okay, so what I want to do when I'm creating a brand new branch, and I want to make sure that it is up to date, is make sure I pull from master. So like I said in the chat, I have this cool thing that tells me what branch I'm on, but make sure you check and double check that you are on master. So you'll run a git pull. I'll see that I'm already up to date, which is great. And then I can actually go in and create a new branch from here. This may not work actually if there are no changes from master here. So maybe I make some changes and then Scott, do you want to pull from master and show what that looks like?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, cool. So in this case, I'll need to write some code, do another pull request, get it into master, and then you'll have to push it down, pull it down.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to create a new branch again, and I'll name that feature, I don't know, more quotes. Hannah. All right. So yeah, you can see that the cool thing I have is indicating that I am on a new branch. All right, and then we've got a couple more in the chat because I know y'all love all these quotes, so maybe I'll just copy one of those. Oh, I'm getting a new one, maybe. All right, so this is a quote from Ian. Beer has food value, but food does not have beer value. Do a get status. Okay. Added beer quote. All right, so I'm getting that thing again because I have not actually set my upstream. This is going to make sure that that branch will live on the remote and make sure that Scott has access to it if he wants. All right, so same as Scott did before, I wrote some code, added it, committed it, pushed it up to a brand new branch. All right, and this is really useful. We often get this kind of thing popping up here, showing us that, hey, this is the branch you just pushed up. Do you want to make a PR? If this does not pop up, we can actually go into branches and create a new pull request from this area because it won't always pop up. It's nice when it does. Definitely do it when it pops up for you. But especially if you're pushing multiple branches, you may not see that. So again, in my project, I just clicked on this branches button right here. Okay, and it's showing me all of the branches we've dealt with so far. So the one that I pushed up is feature more quotes, Hannah Hudson. I'm gonna click this new pull request. All right, I'm not gonna comment this time since y'all have seen it, but in a best practice, I would have. All right, and I want to make sure to assign Scott as my reviewer just so he doesn't miss it, and because I'm sure he loves getting lots of emails from GitHub about reviewing my code. All right, so I will turn it over to you, Scott.
Okay. All right, so I see those changes. I see this little notification here that I have a pull request waiting. Added the beer quote. Let's take a look at that. Okay, so Hannah's requested I review this. Generally, I start by just reading through whatever she would have provided in her template or as a description of her work. Obviously, we don't have that this time, but that's always the first place you start. It'll give you the information of like where to start more specifically. And then I'll always go to the Files Change tab to take a look at the changes individually. Like Hannah mentioned earlier, if there are multiple files, this page can be huge, and because it's all just like black text on a white page, it can be kind of hard to navigate which file you're currently looking at because they'll all appear one after the other. So I like to use this little viewed checkbox here as I finish reviewing a file's changes. So if I've read through all the CSS file changes, I can check this little box and you'll see it kind of collapses that into just the header or the name of the file, I should say. And you'll have this little progress bar. I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff, so I always like to check those off and just like feel like I'm making progress. But I'll see that she added some lines. You can tell with that little plus sign and of course the green background. And I'll say liquid lunch. It's the name for when you have just a beer for lunch. Not encouraging that. We still have work to do.
This also might be a good spot since I didn't actually leave him any context for him to leave a comment and say like, hey, can you give me some details? I'm not really sure what this is.
Sure. Cool. And because I would maybe want that change, I could start the review, or I could just add that single comment. And I'll review those changes. And I think just for the sake of time, I could request changes, but we've seen that happen before already today. So I'll just approve it and we'll submit that review. So the changes are now approved because I clicked that approval button. And I can look at who reviewed it. if you're working on a team, you'll generally have lots of people reviewing your code. I've got no conflicts here with the base branch because Hannah pushed up to the branch more quotes. And so now it's saying between more quotes and master, there are no conflicts. It's safe to merge in. Let's see. So I'll merge that. Were we trying to show, I may have lost our direction on this piece, Hannah. Were we trying to show a different type of conflict here?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, so I think what we wanted to show here is you actually pulling changes down from master and incorporating them into a new branch that you create.
Got it. So you want me to merge this into master and then pull that down and then bring those changes over into a new branch?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So we'll have to merge it into master so I can pull from there. I could just pull her branch specifically with a git pull feature more quotes, but we'll just put it into master. I'm happy with those changes, even though it doesn't have an author. Get this nice purple icon showing it's been merged in. And now if I look at the code base on my README file, we'll see that beer does have food value, but food does not have beer value. So let's go into my terminal and open up my text editor as well. And currently I'm still on my quotes SE branch, but I want to go back to master so I can pull those changes down. So does anybody know, how can I get back to a different branch?
Is it git switch?
Git switch. I haven't heard that one before. I don't think so.
It's git checkout, and then the branch that you want to go to.
Exactly. And the branch I want to go to is master. Now let's say we have lots of branches and I wasn't sure which one I wanted to go to. You can always run git branch, which I believe will give you back a list of all the branches that are active. So I see master is my only other choice, so I'll go to git checkout master.
Hey, Scott.
Yeah.
Why is Hannah's branch not active?
Well, I haven't pulled it down yet. So it exists up on the remote, but I have not pulled any of those changes down. And yeah, that's why.
Cool. Thank you.
Good question. So I'm on master. And I could also just, maybe your terminal isn't customized the way mine is and you don't see your branch name. You can always run git branch like I mentioned a moment ago. And you'll see you have the star next to whichever branch you're currently on. So I want to pull down those changes, and then I want to continue working on them on my own branch. So let's do a git pull. Get all that stuff down. I see that my text editor now reflects what that changes or what changes were brought. I love looking at this too. I can see we have 13 insertions, so 13 lines of code. And when I look at my text editor now, down in the bottom left, I'll see, again, the reflection of which branch I'm on currently. So all of those changes are on master. And when you check out to a new branch, it's almost like you're copying your current version of master, and then you work on that copy of it. So all those changes I just pulled on master, if I want to get those onto a separate branch, I can do git checkout -b. And then let's say even more quotes. I noticed that Hannah put feature here too. You'll see that sometimes as well. Feature, even more quotes. And I'll put my initials on it as well. And now all of those changes that I just pulled down from master are now copied onto this new branch. So this is like the safe workflow, right? I'm not working on master, but I am making sure my local copy of master got updated before I copy it into a new branch. All right, let's see.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What if you wanted to update an existing branch of yours? Maybe you wanted to make sure that your quotes-SE branch had all of the changes from master, because maybe you wanted to add some more to that branch.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So I think in that case, and this is a workflow I'm a little rusty on, so feel free to jump in, but I believe I need to go to that branch. So what are my branches again? Quotes SE. Okay, so let's go to that one. So git checkout quotes SE. And I'll still see that because I haven't brought those changes over here, I'm still working on the last update to this branch. So I believe if I wanted to bring in master changes to this branch, I would do a git merge master. And you can see I took those changes from master, brought them into this branch that I'm currently on. If I had conflicts, it would ask me to resolve those here, I believe, but I didn't seem like I had any, so I just merged it all in.
Yeah,
Does that answer your question?
This is something that you will see and use. So if maybe you are working on a feature and you're not quite done, but your partner has finished a feature and that's gone through code review, it's been pushed up and merged into master, you want to get those changes from master into your current working branch, right? Even though you're not done with that branch, you want all of those current master changes merged in so that you're working with the most up-to-date code.
I'm sorry, I'm
precisely.
super, I've got a lot of questions today.
That's
What
great.
is the difference between pull and merge master?
Yeah, they do kind of do the same thing. I think the difference is when you're pulling, generally you're pulling from the remote version of master to your local version of master, or remote version of a branch to your local version of a branch. But in this case, I'm taking the changes that were already in my branch and I'm merging master into them. It is pretty similar, so I'm not sure I have a great distinction for that one.
Would it show you the conflicts that you have, like you mentioned previously? If you were to do a pull, it wouldn't show you the conflicts versus a merge where it would.
It should show you conflicts if you pull.
Yeah.
So I kind of like looking at the difference like this. So you have your local version of master, right? Your computer, your working version of the master branch. And then the remote is all the way up here. You need to pull those into your branch of master. Your branch over here doesn't really know about master. It might have diverged. It may have some similarities, but maybe you've written so much code on your feature branch. We've got those differences. So we need to merge that version of master into your local branch. So we're going like remote code, your local master, off sideways to your branch, to make sure that we're kind of like following this chain of getting all of those up-to-date changes in the correct place. And there are diagrams kind of showing this, instead of just like my hand and my pen, but showing the progress of getting all of that code into the right places.
Awesome, thank you.
It can get complex, so if this is still fuzzy, totally fine and normal.
Mm-hmm.
I also have a small question before I move on. So we had pulled to the master, we'd updated the master and merged from there. What, is it possible to like pull the branch? Or I assume that because the branch doesn't pull from master, it would pull from the branch online, I guess?
You can pull from another branch.
Okay, and that's why we pulled from the master, because
Master's source of truth.
Source of truth. Okay.
Yeah, so remember my example of like, I worked on a branch and then I asked for help and a mentor checked out that same branch. Maybe he wrote some code and pushed it up and I wanted those changes back into my original branch. So it would kind of go from his code to the remote down to me again.
Brett, did I see you had a question?
Yeah, I just Googled, found a Stack Overflow, and I'm not sure if this is perfectly correct, but it looks like git pull is the same as git fetch followed by git merge. So it sounds like they are very similar there, but yeah.
Yep. All right, so what direction do we want to take this in now? We've now kind of brought in the most recent changes from master to my old branch. Maybe I have some changes to that feature I need to make. Where should we go with this, Hannah?
Yeah, so I think we've showed off everything we'd like to show off at this point. As I said, this can get more complex. There's more features, but I feel like this is a good spot. You've seen kind of a good Git workflow. You've seen us make some mistakes. We've poked around at pull requests. We've done a lot. So this might be a good spot for any remaining questions, and then maybe moving into giving you time to practice this on your own. We did plan to do spicy exercises at 11, but this has gone in a really great direction. We've loved all the questions. This is important stuff. Spicy exercises are something we can send you out as additional resources. This has been really valuable. So we want to make sure that we give you that time to practice on your own too, and make those merge conflicts, actually be writing code to see what happens. I do think it is definitely time for a POM
Yeah,
as well. I saw that in the chat.
So you all go take a POM. Hannah, maybe you and I could type up just some quick steps that they should try to get through to work through this process, and then we'll send you out in pairs to get some real experience on a unimportant repo, so you don't have to worry about it.
Okay. Do we want to do a little bit of a longer POM? Come back at like 11:30.
Works for me.
Cool.
See you all back in a little bit.
I'm realizing now I put 10:30 in the chat. Hopefully you know I meant 11:30.
23-hour POM.
Yeah, you're just in my time zone, Hannah. That's all.
What time zone are you in? Where are you?
Arizona.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm synced up with Pacific time right now, so I'm an hour behind you guys.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, it was for you.
Class starts at 8. It's not cool.
My last job was the office was based in North Carolina, so like 2 hours ahead. So I got up real early. All right. So you should have seen in the 2006 front end channel, Scott has posted a list of instructions. So I'm going to go ahead and put together those breakout room partners. If you want to go over what we're doing, Scott.
Yeah, absolutely. I did leave the instructions like relatively vague. You know, I didn't want to give you the exact commands you need to use for each of those things, but if you were following along closely through this lesson, you should have all the information you need to get through it. It is something I whipped up pretty quickly, so if there are pain points or confusion with the way it's written, please feel free to ask. We're going to put you out into these breakout rooms, but then Hannah and I are going to make a point to jump into as many as we can to just kind of see the conversation that's happening, hear those terms of art, and of course to help problem solve if something gets a little confusing. But like, remember, the whole point of this exercise is to like see what mistakes you run into and where you went wrong, and to know that you're not going to affect any project work. It's literally just a README that you're going to be making. So it's a safe place to experiment. So if you have an idea of what you think you should do, even if you're not 100%, just like send it, see what happens, read those error messages in your terminal, and learn from that experience as much as you can.
Yeah, and this is definitely a good guide to follow, but if you're curious about something and want to try it out, just like Scott said, this is the time to experiment and play around, like go for it, just see what happens. Even if stuff breaks, doesn't matter. Now you're going to know what to expect when you're actually working on a project you do care and you don't want to break. All right, so I've got all the breakout rooms set up. So you will be with a partner. Also feel free to use the ask for help button if you are feeling super stuck and you want some guidance and you want one of us to come to your room. I would imagine that this is going to take the rest of the class time. I feel like we'll probably want to come back right before just to kind of debrief a little bit. But you can expect that you'll be in these rooms for the remainder, pretty much the remainder of the class time.
Yeah, I think when we do the debrief, we can also briefly touch on the spicy exercise we were going to do during this time and just point you to that link, and you can think of that as homework. It's just a small REPL with like 5 prompts in it, so it's a good one.
Mildly spicy.
Yeah. Christopher, the ask for help button should be in the participants panel when you're in a breakout room, I believe. I'm not sure, to be honest, but it exists. If you poke around, I'm sure you'll find it.
Yep. So maybe let's say we come back at like 11:55, or do you think we might need a little bit more time than that?
I think that's fine. And if there are questions that run past that time, we'll just have to drop them in the Slack channel and we'll get to them asynchronously.
Perfect. All right, does anybody have any questions about what we're doing before I send you off into your breakout rooms?
Just a clarifying one. The first bullet point, Scott, on your list is create a remote repo and then link it to a local repo. Am I correct in assuming we create a local repo first?
There's a lot of, you could do it in either order, and there are instructions on GitHub for either order. So whatever you want to do.
Yep. All right, anybody else? All right, I'm gonna go ahead and open up those rooms for you.
think they got it. Oh, Orlando, you're still moving there. Did you find your invite to a breakout room? Yep, he did. Okay.
Such a weird delay with those, or they're frozen.
Yep. I'm gonna take my palm now since I was typing up through that stuff, but I'll be back in
Me
just a couple
too.
minutes.
Okay.
Cool.
Hello.
Hello.
This has been fun.
It has, yeah. I think they're getting a lot out of it.
Yeah, I hope we didn't give them too much. But there's just so much.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I'm sure there are students who are feeling a little overwhelmed at this point, because we touched on a million little things.
No.
But I hope the main flow got through, and I hope they recognize the distinction between what not to do versus what to do, because we showed them both. But
yeah,
you never know what might slip through the cracks. Let's see. So I might just start jumping into some breakout rooms. Do we need to pause the recording during this time? Because I don't think it records breakout rooms, does it? That'd be a lot of different
I don't
recordings.
know. I think I can always cut it out later. We can
sure.
maybe let it run and just see.
Okay, works for me.
Are you able to hop around rooms as a co-host?
Oh, actually, the only option I see is to join the one you assigned me to.
Well, do you want to join that one and then just Slack message me when you want me to move you?
Sure. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Not ideal, but
Yeah, we'll get through it.
Okay. How about I'll start at the bottom. You work your way through the top.
Hello.
Hello. How are we feeling?
We've made a Atom file. Chadrick is setting up a remote branch, a remote master branch. I've got the repo in my in my GitHub account, and now it looks like I've accidentally created a repository within our repository. So
no.
Yeah, so we're trying to get that out of here, but I think we can do that.
Yeah, that totally happens.
Going a little too quickly. Oh, space in between it.
I think you want rm-rf.
Well, this guy says if you added this path by mistake, you can remove it from the index with this command.
Oh, all right.
Oh, I'll just copy and paste this. Following file has stage content from both a file and head. Use F force removal. Boom. Oh.
Yeah, so we want to actually add that to the end of the first command that you ran. So the whole like the get rm -s cached, do -f at the end.
Awesome.
Okay.
Sweet. We're on branch master. Get out.
This is terrible.
Okay, now we're on the second branch.
Nice.
New file.js. Untracked file. What the heck?
Let's do let's actually do an ls in there.
Ah. I really need to change the aesthetics of my terminal so bad.
You want a space right in front of that dash.
Gotcha.
Yep. Okay, that looks better.
Oh no.
What's up?
Oh no, I thought I made a branch. Oh, your branch is up to date with origin master. No. No.
Well, if you made the branch off of master and then didn't make any changes, it would make sense that it's up to date.
Yeah. Oh. I didn't add anything. Oh yeah, I didn't add, so, but wait. Add Xanadu. Untracked files. Oh, untracked file. Okay, okay. Not added yet. So, git stash.
All right, I'm gonna move on to check on another room. Did y'all have any questions?
I think we can work it out. Thanks a lot, Hannah.
All right, cool. Glad you're feeling good about it.
The checkout B or dash B, and then you do what you want to call it, and then you do a dash with your first initial, last initial, or last name initial.
So maybe like, I'm also wondering, do we just write like with spaces? Like if I wanted to call this,
you need to go to my GitHub and clone it or something?
Hello.
Hi.
What's up?
So we created a remote repo on my GitHub.
Okay.
And then I invited Christy as a collaborator. So then we've switched screens. We're in Christy's GitHub and trying to find my collaboration request in her GitHub, but we can't find it. So we're not sure what happened.
Christy, did you get an email at all?
I didn't.
You didn't. Okay. Are you sure that you got her username correct and everything? Did all those kind of double checks to make sure there weren't typos?
Yeah. Or go ahead and share yours.
Okay.
Ashley, let's see what yours is saying. It was my profile for sure.
Yeah. Here we go. So here's our request.
Okay.
Should I do it again?
Still pending. I wouldn't, because that looks right to me. I'm not sure why it's not popping up. It could be a setting in GitHub. But for now, what I would do, Christy, is go to this repo anyway and just clone it. It should work, not being a collaborator.
Okay.
Here.
Where do I find that?
I'm going to stop sharing. And will you share your screen, Christy? I just want to follow what you're doing.
It could take a little while. Sometimes there's a delay. I don't know.
Yeah, Demasio and I did this and it worked for us, at least with the inviting collaborators. Like I got an email notification, so maybe it is just a lag with GitHub.
Christy, have you gotten one before?
Have I gotten an invite?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got one for our project.
Oh, okay. Maybe it's just a lag then.
Okay. How do you, what is your...
DONALD. Yep. Oh.
Users. Okay.
Yeah, that's me.
This
there
one, right?
Yep. Cool.
Okay. Is it because it's empty?
Maybe. Did you push anything up to it yet, or this is just the initial creation? Yeah, it could be because it's empty.
Okay, that would make sense. Okay, so we need to throw a README or something in there.
Okay.
Here, I'll switch back to you.
Cool. Okay. All right. So I should probably do this from the terminal then.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, GitHub practice, DVD, and then workflow practice. Okay, so I'll CD into it and now touch practice file.
Yeah, and just make it like a JavaScript, or you could just do a README as a markdown.
Okay. .md, cool.
Cool. How are y'all feeling about this overall?
Decent. Like I feel like I definitely need to refer to notes while I'm doing it, at least for a while. But I think Mod 1 did a pretty good job of setting, or Mod 0 did a pretty good job of like setting us up for success with it, because it all feels pretty familiar.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, I agree. And then I was in the study hall last night and like Orlando was helping Demasio and I with the whole branch situation and why you don't want to be pushing your requests to master or pushing your changes. And so I got a lot of that. And then this has helped really reaffirm what Orlando was teaching us. So this is really good to practice with.
That's awesome.
For the first
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
I think it was the branches that confused me with this lesson. So
yeah. There are visuals that can help with this, called like a branch tree. There's different fancy things you can get to kind of see that. But oftentimes that can kind of help visualize like, okay, I've master and I have this branching off of it, this branched off of that.
When Bridget just posted like a visual representation of it, I think in the front end group, or it might have been the student group, I can't remember.
Okay, cool.
But I saw that and copied it down like immediately. So that was super helpful.
Yeah, those are definitely helpful. All right, well, I'm gonna jump in another group if you don't have any other questions.
Awesome, thank you.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
So copy and paste that last code there. That git push setup stream.
Oh, okay.
And then just push that in. Then you should be good. It's going to push it to definitely not master, but we can eventually push that to the master.
Aha. Hello.
Hello.
Yep. Hello.
Oh, do we have friends in here?
It's me. Hello. Just checking in.
Sorry, I had a single view. I couldn't see you.
How are things going? How are you feeling about all this?
It's like slipping, but yet I'm holding on to it at the same time. I don't quite know how to explain it, but I can definitely whittle around the terminal a lot better than I can make some JavaScript. So that is a fact right there.
That's good.
Terminal
will be your friend.
So he just pushed it.
Do you want to check and see if you can see it? Wait, would it be?
So since he just pushed it, would I be pulling it then? Or
do I have to do something to do a pull request, or does it just exist up here now?
So you have to go ahead and kick off a pull request on GitHub there.
Okay, so I'm here and I says definitely not master has recent pushes. And then would I say compare and pull request, and then I'd be like practice, and then I'll say please help, and then create pull request.
So when he created the branch, I couldn't see it.
Right.
And so what he just did now allowing me to see that branch?
Yeah, so you can't see his branches until he pushes them, irregardless of a pull request. So if you wanted to thoroughly review this pull request, you could check out his branch and pull it down locally.
Okay.
But the pushing is kind of the key to being able to access it.
The pushing is the key.
Yeah, but the pull request is like, hey, is this good? Can I actually merge this into master and make it the source of truth code?
Okay. And so when I come here, I can click this merge pull request.
If you think it looks good.
If I think it looks good. Add readme.
Mind if I see your screen for a second?
Yeah. Boom. You got please help. You added the readme. And some sort of practice and shit. It's not so hard after all. I'm gonna correct that too. It is pretty hard after all.
Request some changes. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. So review changes. Request changes. No, I'm just gonna. I'm good. I'm good.
Interesting.
All right. Confirm the merge. Practice. Yeah, just practice. Merged and closed. All right. So now I can go into my terminal and I can check out. Son of a bitch. All right. I'm gonna hit enter. It might make me leave.
It might.
All right. So if
hanging out and helping us with this.
Yeah, of course.
What's
I
the
felt
code
a little quick.
to view all of the branches?
Get branch.
Get branch. All right. That's a bit more simpler than I needed. See, I can't see his new branch.
Yeah, so you'll have to actually specifically pull that or fetch that.
Okay, so I would just do get fetch.
I believe it is get fetch and then the name of the branch.
Gotcha. And Caleb, what's the name of your branch?
It's definitely not master.
Definitely not.
All capitalized.
All capitalized.
Oh, sorry. There's caps at the beginning of each.
Yes, and that will be true throughout your entire time at Turing. Like, you'll get some learning from the lecture, but the real learning, that's why we do project-based learning, because that real authentic problem solving that happens in a project is what really makes that knowledge stick. Hello, everybody.
Hey, Scott. So could you have a merge error on like a different branch? Like if you were trying to, if you did something on a different branch, or is it usually just the master that has that merge on it?
Yeah, generally it's when you're trying to put it into master, but I guess you could have one if, let's say you started a branch, you did some work, you opened up a pull request, and I wanted to continue where you left off. I could pull down your branch, or I could be on your branch maybe and do some work and then try to push to your branch. It's essentially like anytime the remote branch, whatever branch that might be, is different than your local version of it, that's when those conflicts will happen. But generally, you'll encounter it most when trying to merge into master.
Awesome. Thank you.
Of course. All right. So I'm guessing you all probably didn't get through the whole thing. That's quite all right. I do encourage you to maybe make some time this weekend to pick up where you left off with your partner, and finish out that workflow, especially if you didn't get a chance to resolve those conflicts. But rest assured that like you will experience conflicts at some point in your time at Turing.
Yep.
It's just whether or not you want to have like a safe place to try them out versus like when you're actually on a project.
Sometimes the best way to learn is by breaking stuff.
Yeah.
And this is that to a T.
So what, I guess we got a couple minutes. We could address some final questions. Hannah, I don't know if you have that spicy exercise copied already, but I could hunt that down and grab that link if we want to send that out before we leave.
I don't, but I
Okay.
think you sent it to me yesterday. It might just be in a message.
Oh yeah, that's right. Nicole, I saw your hand go up. What question do you have?
I saw it. I'll find it.
Okay.
So is this something, like I'm just thinking about the pair project right now. Is this something that maybe like, if we're not completely comfortable with using this yet, we should practice on like a fake repository and then implement it into our project? Should we not implement into our project right now? Or like, when do you expect us to start using this?
I'd say we would expect you to be trying this workflow during your paired project. We're not expecting perfection, and mistakes are going to happen. That's fine. But I would encourage you to go ahead and try it in the real context of a project, so you kind of get used to that feeling when you experience a conflict on something with the pressure of a project.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Scott, quick question. When we were starting off, my terminal was saying for both of us to run this push command. Did we miss a step potentially? I mean, it worked afterwards, in the subsequent pushes, but.
Yes, so you'll generally have to set the upstream once, and then after that, you'll be able to just do git push or git push origin master or branch name. But if there's no upstream set, it's gonna like reject it and say, actually, you gotta tell me where exactly this is going first.
Okay.
All right, I linked those spicy exercises in the Slack channel, just because I know Zoom will kick out all those links. This is just, as Scott said, 5 exercises, not required, but could be some good practice for you to do on your own, JavaScript related.
Especially you could throw some pseudocode in there if you're not sure what the real code is gonna be, but engage with those problems and you'll definitely learn from them.
Yep.
That's cool. It's 12 on the dot. Would love to respect your lunch break and get you out there to get some rest and get some food. If any other questions come up, feel free to drop them in the channel. This afternoon, we've got a professional development session on giving and receiving feedback, which is especially important for this first paired project. So we'll see you there for that at 1 o'clock. Have a good lunch, everybody.
Bye.
Dot, sorry, real quick. Repeaters as well?
Repeaters do not need to go to PD.
Oh, okay, just in general.
But you're welcome.
Well,
Of course.
no
repeaters allowed.
Not allowed.
Thank you.
Of course. Thank you all.